Hey guys, GHAZZY TV here with another Path of Exile 1 video. This time it's going to be a build guide video for the recently giga buffed Soulwrest staff. I'm kind of excited to show you guys this one because I'm pretty satisfied with how it turned out. But let's crack into the video. Whoa, 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 whoa. Stop. You're not subscribed yet. Hit that button and then we'll continue on with the build. No, don't sigh. This is not cringy, trust me. Yeah, it's down there. Yeah. It's down there. You found it. Thank you. All right, let's go on. Sadly, I haven't played Soulwrest in quite a few leagues, so therefore there is no gameplay footage in this video, so bear with me. However, we do have a PoB. This is a low-budget PoB, and I do want to point out that the Soulwrest staff has always been pretty all right for low budget. It's been okay-ish for medium budget ranges. And then it's kind of fallen off the goddamn cliff when it comes to higher budget versions of investing currency into the builds. That's the usual way. Now, they almost doubled the entire damage output for Soulwrest with the buffs that they gave. The buff itself is doubled. They moved Summon Phantasm level from level 20 to 25, which is quite massive. So before I show you the details of the low budget PoB, I do want to point out that how it works. The Soulwrest staff, you don't need that to be 6 linked because the skill that's being used where you're summoning Phantasm by consuming corpses is actually from the weapon itself. This means that you don't need to link the sockets on your weapon, you just need the sockets, making this a very, very cheap approach to get, but you do need to get the actual staff, of course. Besides that, you have a level 25 Phantasm on this. A level 20 will give you up to 10 Phantasms. Level 21 or higher gives you 11. If you socket in the Summon Phantasm support into this, you actually go from 11 Phantasms to 22. And if you have a level 20, then that would be 21 Phantasms. That's why we're using the Summon Phantasm support in the weapon as well. Anyways, before you get access to the staff, this is going to be an actual Guardian. And I do want to point out how you would level a build like this. I'm going to quickly show you the exact routing of how to level a Guardian the easiest way possible. And the process is very simple. When you start off, you do like rolling magma into SRS, and then at level 12, you go absolution. You'll start with these nodes, and then you will pick up the enduring bond, and then you go through these nodes up here, and go straight through the minion node into life node, and go like this. This puts you at level 23. And then you'll pick up the Righteous Army. And after this, you actually just take some life nodes. You could actually go for the Lord of the Dead if you want to. That's level 30. And then you can do something like this. And now you can pick up the first Labyrinth. Once you do the first Labyrinth, you'll pick up the Radiant Crusade. This is the single most overpowered and broken ascendancy node in the entire game for this level. It falls off later, but it's extremely good right now. Once you got in this bad boy, you'll basically want to use Shield Charge with faster attacks. You want to have Frostblink and Convocation. And that means you spec into the Minion Defensive Mastery and grab the Convocation cooldown recovery node. And you'll also take a Minion Offensive node to get yourself the minions that increase the area of effect. Now your entire setup is you Shield Charging and Frostblinking and Convocating this bad boy, which will basically kill everything on the screen. He is borderline immortal to anything in the campaign, and he has a 100% chance to taunt on hit. And he just will not die, and thanks to the Enduring Bond nodes, he lasts 32.8 seconds, which basically means that you only have to resummon him every 30-ish seconds or so. Other than that, you're just running through the entire campaign. He will allow you to run through white tier maps and almost single-handedly carry you through yellow tier maps as well. But at that point, you kind of want to use some other spells as well. My recommendation when you're doing something like this would actually be to run Absolution as your main skill with physical to lightning support, and later on Overcharge. You don't even have to go higher than this, but the Overcharge and the full lightning damage is allowing you to have pretty high shock values to further scale the damage output that the actual Sentinel is doing. You don't need anything else than that to level a Guardian, and I shit you not. So what I would do is do something like this, and then I would follow the PoB for the low budget build that you plan to play. Anyways, back to the actual build. Soulwrest, low budget. Let me show you the tree. We are going to be focusing on duration to double down on fresh meat. You don't have to do it, but I like doing it with this approach as we're using similar tech for the mage skeletons. Essentially, we're picking up some generic minion nodes in life and some mana reservation. We are picking up maximum power charges. More of that later. That'll be after you get a specific unique. We have a node right here, which is double stun duration. That is because PoE currently isn't updated, which you can see in the configuration. We have simulated the Soulwrest flat buff. We're not using a perfect staff for this PoE to inflate the numbers. We're using a mid-roll, but we do have the max buff node in here, so you have a mediocre roll Soulwrest in the end. And the level scaling is added as a simulation in the PoE. And the staff master I showed you is supposed to be the new one, which gives you increased mana. And then an Anime Guardian will be using Leercast Dying Breath mainly. That's basically the play there. There is a Flesh and Stone. It's a bit of a couple other comments there. That's how PoE is calculating Flesh and Stone. It would be way too strong if you just enabled it, so you have to do a custom modifier for it. I'm going to take that away and show you how tanky this build is without that, because you will only have 19% less damage if you're very close to the enemy, which tapers off the further away you are from him. So that's the custom modifiers. Essentially, it's just a straightforward setup. Just go for the block nodes, life, and minion nodes. That's essentially it. However, we are going to need a medium cluster, which you can actually purchase or find a item level 68 or higher minion life medium cluster jewel, and then alteration craft to bless rebirth. It doesn't cost more than 10, 15, 20 alterations. The jewel itself shouldn't be more than 1 or 2, maybe 3 chaos if you're unlucky. So it's a very cheap purchase, and we are going to be using an armor cluster jewel at the very tail end. You don't need this later on, but the medium cluster, you kind of want to have that before you do red tier maps. And this is for Enduring Composure for the endurance charges, which we are adding here as well. Pantheon-wise, we are going to be running Solar Lunaris as the main god, and Solar Growth Cool for a minor. And when it comes to the skills, we are going to be socketing 6 supports into our actual Soulwrest weapon. One of which is the Summon Phantasm. This PoE is only using a level 20, so my DPS is showing 21 Summon Phantasms. We have Fresh Meat, Critical Strike damage, Minion damage, Critical Strikes, and Hypothermia. For clearing, when you're not doing endgame pinnacle bosses, Hypothermia would be swapped out for something like Greater Multiple Projectiles. If your DPS feels bad, which it really shouldn't with this buff, you can use less multiple projectiles instead if you so choose to. In the auras, I've made a little asterisk mark here regarding Flesh and Stone, which is configured, but we're going to run Pure Developments, Determination, Celatry, and Flesh and Stone in Sand Stance. We're going to be having a Frost Blink, of course, and then we have a 5-link minion setup. This minion setup, I do want to point out, this is a luxury thing. You don't need this because the build does about 6 million DPS without this in low budget. But I like high DPS, so why not? But I will point out a few things about this. The setup is essentially Summon Golem with Feeding Frenzy and Minion Life. However, if you want to go crazy, you can add an Anime Guardian and Ray Spectre, in which we're going to be using a Demon Harpy and a Pale Seraphim. A guide linked to the descriptions down below will cover this in detail. The main setup to actually cast the corpses that you then consume is going to be done with Cyclone. So you're just going to be spinning to winning with Castfall Channeling, with a low-level Desecrate and a Spirit Offering. And then we have some really cool tech here. We're going to have a mark on hit Sniper's Mark. So whenever you hit an enemy, which you'll do quite often despite having low hit chance, you'll hit so many times per second, you're going to be fine. We'll putting the mark up automatically. However, we have a more duration linked with Sigil of Power. Once a Sigil of Power is placed, it's more of a bossing thing. You place it on the top of the boss, you spin inside of it, you're spending your mana, it builds up some charges, and what then happens is you get more damage output and you get better defenses from it, which is really nice. However, if you look at the defensive stats here, ignore the EHP because it's very it's completely irrelevant for PoBs. What you're looking at is the maximum damage taken, the maximum hits that you can take, 18,700. Now, if I don't have Sigil of Power, that is 15,000. If I remove the Flesh and Stone, you'll have some portion of it, but you won't have 19% unless you're on top of the target. You're going to end up with sitting on 12.6 thousand physical damage hits. That is a ridiculously good number for a low-budget build with a two-handed weapon. We also have availability of taking almost 30,000 hits from elemental damage and 12k without Cat Chaos Rest on the Chaos sources. So that's how that looks, and I just want to show you that the build is actually very sturdy despite using a staff. Outside of that, in the config, we have the Spectre here for the second Spectre and information regarding Flesh and Stone in here as well. And we do have some extra minions that gives us Wrath, Anger, and Hatred. from Unwavering Crusade, which we benefit from, which makes our minions actually do quite a lot of damage from all three sources, but most of the damage is from physical. This is why we're going to be using a Flesh Crafter. This is about 2 million of the damage, 2 million DPS worth of using the Flesh Crafter, so that's what it's there for. But you don't need this to be 6-linked. Obviously, we'll use a Soulwrest staff, and the important part that we're using here to scale our damage quite drastically, and the reason why we're taking maximum power charges on the skill tree is the Ancient Skull. This gives your minions a ridiculous amount of critical strike chance. However, when a minion crits something, they are going to take a portion of their maximum life as chaos damage per second and then just die for the next 5 seconds. However, they get giga damage before that. We're going to tackle this issue and solve this. This is very important, and I'm going to go through the rest of the gear, but I do want to emphasize the importance on how you don't kill your enemy guardian and specters once you equip this item. Essentially, in the calculation tab, if I were to go to my utility minions and check out my beautiful animate guardian, and I look at his numbers on the bottom left, I'll see that once he crits something, he's actually going to lose 1.1 thousand life per second for 5 seconds, and he only has 29,000 life. That puts him at a huge risk of dying. So what we're going to do to tackle this is, in this budget, we're going to be using this Minion Defense Mastery, where your minions recover life when a minion dies. When you are spinning to winning, you are going to consistently consume corpses that summons new minions. When you oversummon, so let's say you have 21 phantasms out and you summon another 5, your oldest 5 phantasms will then die and trigger this and be replaced with the new summons. So if you kill, say, a pinnacle endgame boss and your AG or your specters have crit the enemy, and then there's nothing else for you to hit, you just keep spinning and you keep summoning these phantasms, which will automatically keep all your entire army alive. They will never die if you do that. And they shouldn't die after a boss fight unless they took a damage hit beforehand. So all you have to do is keep that in mind, that once you kill the boss, spin for a few seconds just to make sure that your AG, your specters are not dying, and you'll never see them die. I want to point that out. Rest of the gear is very straightforward. We have a pair of gauntlet. There's some little mini damage. You can get that from implicits or fair crafted gloves. Doesn't really matter. Not that you need the damage. You can live without it. Movement speed boots. We do have brittle here. I'm not sure if we checked it. We did check it. So the boots is from an implicit. Just generic movement speed, life resistance, attributes where needed. We actually do need a little bit more dexterity and strength here. I just noticed. And then obviously amulets, we're doing the same approach. However, we decided to keep the budget as low as possible because we have no idea how expensive the Soulwrest staff might become. As a result, we decided to oil, I can't believe I'm saying this, cloth and chain, because it gives you a little bit of rest, which eases up your gearing. It costs you 2 clear oils, which is the shittiest oil in the game, and an azure oil. That's it. Like, it's so cheap. It's ridiculous. You can put this on whatever amulet you'll find. But anyways, the rings, if you can get your hands on amethyst rings, that's great. Lower cost of skills, it's beneficial, but you don't need it. But Chaos Rest is quite nice to pick up on amethyst rings in general, because Chaos Rest on other pieces tends to cost a bit more to help out with that. But you don't need a lot of it, especially not on low budget. You'll do so much damage anyways. So that's what we set up on these. And what you could do is, as you can see here, there's a bench crafted dexterity. We can put some more stats on these things if needed. You can get help with stats on your jewelries. The Darkness and Throne is a 75% roll, in which we just have 0 life mod, actually. We just attack, cast, speed mod together with a fist damage mod. You can have attributes, resistances in this to help navigate through that, to make sure that that's covered. We'll run a Runish Concoction to help get that block chance to 75, 73. We'll run a Basalt Flask and a Jade Flask and the remaining flask. You just put 2 life flasks, make sure one of them is removing bleed from you. And the medium cluster, I talked about the Blessed Rebirth, same thing with the small cluster, Enduring Composure. And to keep the cost down, what you can do is run Cobalt Jewels instead of Ghastly Eye Jewels, because all you need to do is get a minion damage mod, and then you can get resistances or attributes where you need it. And if you already have that covered, then you go for a life, and that will still cost you less currency than buying a Ghastly Eye Jewel. And that is literally the entire setup for the Guardian Soulwrest low budget. The remaining ascendancy nodes, or the order of them, is to pick up Radiant Crusade, into Unwavering, into Radiant Faith, into the new version over here in the top corner, which we have added through this node right here, or this text here in the custom modifier. So that would be the order of the ascendancy, and that's basically it. So like I said before, you can start off with leveling with something like with the guardian setup and absolution, and then switch over to this once you have the staff, and then obviously ramp it up and scale it once you get the helmet, put your specters in, AG and all that shit if you want to. However, I mentioned before that in the past, Soulwrest have had some struggles with being able to be competitive in the higher budget versions. And sadly, from my experience PoEing this and with my boys, we've had the same problem. However, we did manage to get a medium budget working in the end to be pretty good, actually. I was pretty happy with it. Some cool tech in this one. Tree, as you can see, is quite similar. We're picking up practical application to help with attribution res. We're basically doing the same thing as before because of the fact that we do scale the duration, which helps us when we resummon the minions. We're going to make sure that every time we resummon them, they're still within that fresh meat buff duration so that they can do as much damage as possible. A couple of minor changes here. We're actually switching over to using Triad Grip with 4 green sockets, which means that we're now going to want to penetrate enemy cold rest. Same tech again with the minion life setup. An increased effective offerings. Same ascendancy nodes. We are going for the crit nodes. The cluster is almost the same. We're adding life from death together with a blessed rebirth. Life from death is there to further and emphasize and double down on the whole idea of how you keep your minions alive due to ancient skull helmets. We do add a large cluster, just a simple 8 passive like Call to Slaughter, Renewal, or something else. You don't have to be too picky with this one, but the Call to Slaughter is one of the more important ones. If you have a luxury currency available in the medium budget, you can get yourself a Watcher Side with Determination, extra physical damage mitigation. And that's basically it for the skill tree, let's be real. Skill-wise, we're running a similar setup like we did before. Everything will be covered. There's obviously some woke gems in here. Aura-wise, we're running Enlighten in the medium budget with Zealotry, Skitterbots, Purity of Elements for element immunity. We have yet again the same setup with Enemy Guardian. However, I would not run this without the meat shield, which is in a 5-link, but we're also putting more duration socketed in our body armor. You don't need a 6-link body armor, so again, no need for 6 links in this build. We are, instead of using the spin to win setup here, actually summoning our phantasms through Arcanist Brand, through having an Arcanist Brand casting triggered Desecrate and then Spirit Offering with Spell Cascade. And the reason Spell Cascade is so important is to generate more corpses than the Spirit Offering is using. And the reason for this, I'll get to that in the gear section. We do run a Profane Proxy. I know that's a bit out of my comfort zone to actually run a Profane Proxy. We'll put this in our left ring slot for Frostbite, Automatic Cursing, and the sockets we have for Triad Grip. Make sure you do not link your haste or Vol haste with the enhanced setup, or it will cost you more mana to reserve. So therefore I have a little asterisk up here, and you can see that haste is actually activated here, but it's not in this little 4-link setup, if you will. We are, for Spectre wise, we are running 1 perfect Guardian Turtle, which you can see on the left hand side. You can click on Manage Spectre to see all 3 here, and in here there's an asterisk mark again showing you that we're running 1 Primal Crush Claw and 1 Perfect Forest Warrior. There's also a little red marker showing that we're using Elemental Weakness on the Enemy Guardian on the gloves. I don't want to go too deep into it, but I do want to talk about the whole idea with the Ancient Skull keeping these bad boys alive. In the gear section, you can take the drop-down menu and check out the AEG in detail. Everything is covered in the configuration section as well. If there's something you're wondering about, always ask if you want to. However, in the item section, we're again Soulwrest, Ancient Skull. We're using Triad Grip with 4 green colors to make sure that we're doing pure cold damage. We only have 2 rare items, so do keep in mind that your jewelries will have to help you out with resistances and or attributes. So be a little bit cautious when it comes to the rare pieces when you go into this budget. Jinx Juju, Oiling Grave Intentions. I'll explain that in a bit as well. And that's basically the gist of it. Now, to the important pieces that I haven't mentioned. First off, we are oiling Grave Intentions. This is to give your minions chaos resistance. As you can see, we're no longer using Fleshcrafter. Instead, we are using Queen's Hunger. We are going to get Giga buffed Veil modifiers from these specific items. We don't know what the changes are to the Queen's Hunger, so I've left them open here with a little red text. So they're going to get improved, but we don't know how. However, what Queensunger is doing is that it's triggering level 20 Bone Offering, and then 5 seconds later, it will trigger level 20 Flesh Offering, and 5 seconds after that, it will trigger level 20 Spirit Offering, which we're already doing ourselves. And with the duration nodes that we have, this is actually going to create a permanent uptime of all 3 offerings, assuming you have enough corpses, hence why Arcanist Brand is generating Desecrate with Cascade to make sure there's always corpses for this purpose. However, Leash of Ablation is being used in combination with this, making it so that those offerings also apply on us, which is something that's normally only found on the Necromancer Ascendancy. This does lower the duration of the offerings, which we are compensating with duration because of fresh meat. What it does allow us to do is get a ridiculous amount of cast, attack speed, movement speed, and block chance that crit don't apply to us because we don't care. But those 4 factors is massive for this build, and we want to sustain that. Very, very important, and that's how the build's played. We still, like I said before, I have no idea what Veil modifiers we get here. And, you know, as you can see, the damage is about twice, a little less than twice the damage, and it's going to cost you a little bit more to get here. And this is where what I call efficiency per currency invested kind of starts to drop down for the Soulwrest builds. But it was fun to design. There's a couple of different variations out there. There's some Necromancer versions as well, but I was very happy to do this one. So, when it comes to the Ancient Skull and keeping your minions alive, since you can no longer spin to win and just heal them after there's no targets to hit, because this setup requires you to have actual something to put the Arcanist Brand on. So, if your minions crit something and there's nothing to hit, are they going to die? So, here's the solution. We can have minions have chaos resistance on jewels if you need to. This is to make sure that your minions gets not capped. It doesn't need to be capped, but as much chaos resistance as possible, so that the damage over time effect that the Ancient Skull is applying to them deals as little damage as possible. So if I go to the calculation tab, I want to show you the Animate Guardian first. The Animate Guardian is wearing, let's me double check. It's using Kingmaker, the big weapon, but it's using Lair Cast, which is a low budget helmet. It's using Gruthkul's Pelt for life regeneration, and then some chaos resistance gloves with elemental weakness on hit. And then if you look at the numbers and the AG crit something, he is still regenerating 4,500 life per second. Even if he does get that effect on him, he will never die. And then we can go over and check the specters and look at Perfect Guardian Turtle. Is going to regenerate 1,200 life per second, even if you're not hitting, is being able to heal with the minion death. That is because of the extra chaos rust. Now, if you don't get to the point where they're regenerating, all you need to do is that as long as a fight is happening, you're healing them anyways, you're fine. But make sure that you get some chaos rust. You don't need as much to keep them alive, just to make sure the guy stays alive. The other Spectres is a Primal Crush Claw. He's going to be fine. And the Forest Warrior, he's also going to be fine, but they have a lot more HP as well. So that's basically the setup we have. It's very nice once you trigger that beautiful flesh offering. So like when you're clearing maps, your offerings are going to kill off corpses that you're killing enemies from. And that's going to keep you rolling with these buffs at a consistent basis, increasing your defense, increasing your speed, increasing your minions damage output, increasing your minions crit damage output. It's going to be pretty fun to play this. But that's basically it. I don't really have much more to add to it. Main focus, obviously, is the low-budget approach. The damage numbers on that is looking absolutely ridiculous. On the other hand, I don't think I will ever bring a Soulwrest, at least not this league, up beyond the medium budget stage. I feel like the efficiency per currency invested after medium budget just falls off a cliff, and I'm not really that interested in it. However, it is seemingly one of the strongest low-budget approaches to the game. Now, this also means that we might see the Soulwrest staff become pretty expensive. I don't know how rare it is. I don't know how the market will behave. But if you find one, I can wholeheartedly recommend using it for low and medium budget and just fly through the entire endgame setup with it. It'll be pretty cool. Either way, I don't want to take up too much of your time. If you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe for more content. Leave a comment down below what you guys think of the Soulwrest build. I appreciate all the support. I'll see you guys in the next one. Till then, stay safe. Keep rocking.